I'm 28 and I work as a security guard downtown, typically finishing my shift at 11 p.m. Every night I take the train home. One night, about a third of the way home, the train came to an unexpected halt. We were informed that there had been an accident on the tracks ahead and that there wouldn't be any more trains for the night. Frustrated, we all got off the train and started walking, complaining about how far we still had to go. As we trudged along, two other guys in security uniforms, who had been on the train with me, mentioned that their car was just a few blocks away. They said they were heading in the direction of my neighborhood and offered me a ride. By this time, it was nearing midnight, and I still had a long way to go. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Now, before you think it was foolish to accept a ride from strangers, let me explain. As a small woman, I would never normally accept a ride from two unknown men, but they were also security guards. In my city, there's an unspoken rule among security personnel to look out for one another, regardless of the company we work for. So, I assumed these guys were just trying to help a fellow guard out. As we walked towards their car, one of the guys started acting strangely. He seemed drunk. This made me uneasy, but I reassured myself that he wasn't the one driving, and the other guy seemed fine. How wrong I was. When we reached the car, I realized it wasn't a car at all. It was a van. One of the guys apparently lived in it. The sight of that van sent alarm bells ringing in my head. It looked exactly like the kind of van you'd imagine a serial killer driving. I even thought to myself, this looks like a murder van. Little did I know how accurate that thought would be. Here's where I made my biggest mistake. Instead of following my instincts and running away, I got into the van. It was one of those moments where social conditioning kicked in. Women, especially, are often conditioned not to make a scene or offend others, even when we're scared. It's a stupid and dangerous mindset, but in that moment, it was stronger than my sense of self-preservation. I froze, afraid of what might happen if I tried to back out. So there I was, sitting in the front seat of a van with two strangers, one of whom was acting more erratic by the minute. The drunk guy started ranting about wanting Trump back in office, race riots, and other crazy, unhinged topics. Meanwhile, I was quietly freaking out, rapidly texting my partner about the bad decision I had made. I genuinely feared that I might not make it home that night. The only smart thing I did was not tell them my exact address. I had them drop me off a few streets away from my house and took a back route home, even cutting through someone's yard to be safe. 2 days later, I was at work when I saw a news report. At 11 a.m. the day after my terrifying ride, another security guard had been shot and killed in the labor and delivery ward of a hospital near my house. My heart nearly stopped when I read who the shooter was. It was the crazy guy from the van, the one who had terrified me that night. The driver, the one who had given me a ride, turned out to be the shooter's getaway driver. I started hyperventilating as the realization hit me. That could have been me. So, let my story be a warning. Never, ever accept a ride from strangers. This is the story of two friends, Amir and Wakar, who had known each other since their school days. One day, they decided to grab a bite together after work. They chose McDonald's, their childhood favorite. It was around 10 p.m., and both friends met at McDonald's. The atmosphere was as comfortable as ever. Bright lights, kids playing, and people lined up at the counter. Amir ordered his usual Big Mac, while Wakar opted for a Filet-O-Fish. They decided to sit at a table in the corner to enjoy their meal. As they reached the table, Amir noticed that a man at the nearby table was staring at them. The man was middle-aged, with disheveled hair and a strange glint in his eyes. Amir pointed him out to Wakar, but Wakar shrugged it off, saying Amir was probably overthinking it and should just ignore the man. They began eating, but Amir couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The man was still watching them, occasionally smiling, which made Amir feel uneasy. Wakar tried to lighten the mood by talking about old times, but Amir's attention kept drifting back to the man. A few minutes later, the man suddenly stood up and walked over to Amir and Wakar's table. In a soft voice, he asked, "You guys here for a meal too?" There was something about the way he spoke that made Amir uncomfortable. Wakar quickly responded, "Yes, and you?" The man smiled and said, "Yes, I just got here. I come here often. But you two seem different." This comment left both friends puzzled. Amir asked, "What do you mean? How are we different?" The man, with an eerie smile, replied, "You two are always together, but today, like last time, your story is about to take a different turn." Hearing this, Amir's heart began to race. He looked at Wakar and saw the same fear reflected in his eyes. The man suddenly stood up and walked out of the restaurant. Amir and Wakar sat there, stunned and confused. Breaking the silence, Wakar asked, "Amir, who was that guy?" Amir shook his head. "I don't know, but we should get out of here quickly." They both got up, leaving their food behind, and rushed out of McDonald's. As they walked toward the car, Amir glanced back and saw the same man standing in the distance, shrouded in darkness, with that same unsettling smile. They hurried into the car and drove away. The entire drive was silent, but there was a lingering sense of dread, as if something terrible was about to happen. That night, Amir and Wakar decided they wouldn't be going back to McDonald's anytime soon, and that man who had ruined their night never quite left their minds. Last Saturday night, after a grueling week of meetings and deadlines, my friend Jake and I decided we needed a break. We were both craving something indulgent and comforting, so we agreed that KFC was the perfect choice. It was late, and we knew that our usual spots might be closed, but KFC was known for its late hours, and we were counting on it. Jake picked me up around 11 p.m., and we set off on our adventure. The city had quieted down, and the streets were almost empty, save for the occasional car passing by. The cool night air was refreshing, and the excitement of getting our hands on some fried chicken lifted our spirits. As we drove, we chatted about our week and shared stories about the latest happenings in our lives. It was one of those conversations where you can talk about anything and everything, and time seems to slip away. The drive felt relaxing, and by the time we reached the KFC, we were both eagerly anticipating our meal. We pulled into the parking lot, And there it was, KFC, its bright red and white sign gleaming in the night. The familiar aroma of fried chicken wafted out as we approached the entrance. The restaurant was still open, with a few other patrons inside. The warmth and comforting smell of the place were a welcome relief from the chilly night air. We entered and made our way to the counter. The menu was as tempting as ever, with all the classic options and some new items that had recently been added. After a bit of back and forth, we decided on a bucket of the Colonel's original recipe chicken, some mashed potatoes with gravy, coleslaw, and of course, a large order of biscuits. Jake also grabbed a couple of the new spicy chicken sandwiches he'd been wanting to try. We found a booth near the back of the restaurant, settled in, and eagerly awaited our food. As we waited, we noticed the quiet hum of the restaurant and the soft chatter of the few other diners. There was a sense of camaraderie in the air. Everyone seemed to be enjoying their own late-night treat, making it feel like a small, shared escape from the day. When our food finally arrived, it was like a feast. The bucket of chicken was golden and crispy, the mashed potatoes were creamy and rich, and the biscuits were warm and flaky. We dug in with gusto, savoring every bite. The crispy chicken skin, the savory gravy, and the soft, buttery biscuits were everything we had hoped for and more. As we ate, we continued our conversation, reminiscing about old times and discussing future plans. The food was incredible, and the combination of good company and indulgent comfort food made for a perfect night. We even tried the spicy chicken sandwiches, which were just the right amount of heat, crispy on the outside, juicy on the inside, and packed with flavor. At one point, a group of friends came in, clearly excited about their own late-night KFC run. Their laughter and animated conversations added a lively atmosphere to the restaurant, and it felt like the night was filled with small moments of joy and connection. After we finished our meal, we lingered for a bit, chatting and enjoying the last of our drinks. The night had turned out to be more than just a food run. It was a chance to unwind and catch up in a relaxed setting. When we finally left, we were both satisfied and content, with our hunger and stress from the week thoroughly addressed. As Jake drove me home, we talked about how sometimes the simplest outings, like a late-night trip to KFC, can turn into memorable experiences. The restaurant, with its late-night charm and comforting food, had provided the perfect backdrop for a much-needed break. We agreed that it was exactly what we needed to recharge and reconnect. When I got home, I felt a deep sense of relaxation and gratitude. The night had been a reminder of how good it feels to take a break from the routine and indulge in something comforting, even if it's just a bucket of fried chicken and some good company.